of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition? And the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After more than a decade of war, it's time to accelerate our drawdown from troops in Afghanistan and bring this war to a close. We've sent our brave servicemen and women to Afghanistan to eliminate the international terrorists who would do us harm. They have successfully executed this mission with phenomenal dedication and capacity. They've driven al-Qaeda from Afghanistan, destroyed their training facilities, killed or captured most of their top leaders. Under President Obama's decisive leadership and thanks to the courage and competency of our special forces, the 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden has met his just end. The President has outlined a plan for winding down this war, and I support drawing down our military presence in Afghanistan even more quickly than the President has suggested. We should welcome our troops back as heroes and ensure that they receive the support and care that is due when they return. Our military service members and their families have borne and continue to bear far more than their share of the burden of this war. I'm a member of the House Armed Services Committee, and I represent the 10th District of California, home to Travis Air Force Base, the largest air mobility command unit in the Air Force. And nearby in Marysville, California, is Beale Air Force Base, which is the leader in intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Together, 16,000 service members across the active duty, National Guard, and Reserve, and over 75,000 veterans live in my district and in the surrounding area. These are the people who are disproportionately bearing the cost of this war. As their representative, I owe it to them to make sure that we do not ask of them any more than is absolutely necessary to ensure America's national security. But the majority here in this House is determined to prevent even a serious debate about ending the war in Afghanistan. They have inserted language into the National Defense Authorization Act that would actually slow down the withdrawal of U.S. forces and keep nearly 70,000 troops in Afghanistan until at least 2015. When the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee tried to offer an amendment to replace this provision, the majority said it was out of order. When a bipartisan group of members of Congress joined together on an amendment replacing this provision, the majority blocked that amendment. This is the longest war in America's history, claiming thousands of lives, costing hundreds of billions of dollars, and the majority simply doesn't want to talk about it. We must talk about this war. We must take time to think deeply about the sacrifice of those who have served. To date, 1,875 of our military service members have been killed in Afghanistan, leaving thousands more to endure the unimaginable grief of loss of a loved one. 15,322 of our troops have been wounded seriously, suffering life-altering injuries. Not including in that number are those with psychological wounds. Invisible, but no less devastating. We have spent $500 billion in taxpayer dollars on the war in Afghanistan, and this legislation would allocate $88 billion more to be spent in this year alone. There are some who would continue this war indefinitely. They opposed a fixed timeline for ending combat operations and bringing our troops home. They oppose any concrete plans for transitioning full responsibility to Afghanistan for security as quickly as possible. Even worse, they would have American troops continuing to fight against a domestic insurgency in Afghanistan, and they think it's America's job to defeat those armed factions that threaten the Karzai government, perhaps the most corrupt government in this world. In fact, they've inserted language into this bill that says the U.S. objective in Afghanistan is to defend the Karzai government against the Taliban. And now they also have an interest in American troops defeating the Haqqani network and any other faction that's taking on the Karzai government, involving us in a multi-sided civil war. It was never the American mission in Afghanistan, nor should it be. As President Obama clearly said last week, and I quote, "Our goal is to destroy al-Qaeda." We began a military operations in Afghanistan with a very clear reason. It's time for us to end this war and bring our troops home. I thank you, Madam Chair.
The clerk will read.
Page 8, line 3, Operation and Maintenance.